Welcome back in Alive Now. I'm Austin Westfall. One thing I wanted to hit today is the United States ordering the deployment of air and naval forces to the southern Caribbean Sea in order to address threats from Latin American drug cartels. Reuters, the one bringing us this report, they say that 3 sources briefed them on the decision. President Trump has wanted to use the military to go after Latin American drug gangs that have been designated as global terrorist organizations. And Reuters says the Pentagon has been directed to prepare options. Nelson Bolito is the chairman of the Border Commerce and Security Council. He's here. He joins me. This is a headline that came across my plate on Thursday. I wanted to talk to you about this. I thought of you, Nelson, as soon as I read this. Before we get started, just lay out what we need to know about Latin American drug cartels. What is the issue, and why is the White House moving these pieces in such a way to focus on this issue?
Well, it's great to be with you this afternoon. Thanks for having me. So you have to look at where a lot of the drugs are stemming from. We know it's Central America, South America, but really we also know that a lot of it's coming in from China. So we have to protect our seas. And what I mean by that is what kind of transports are coming in, bringing fentanyl, a lot of these precursors. And then once they get manufactured or put together in some of these Latin American countries, including Mexico, how do they develop the way up to the United States? So it's about disrupting organized crime wholesale. And what I mean by that, this is not just seizing a drug lab. The idea is not just stopping more fentanyl pills at the border. Well, sure, that's tactical, but we need to have more of a strategic success. What kind of strategic success have we had since we did Plan Colombia and Pablo Escobar and disrupting the criminal gangs in Colombia almost 20 years ago when George Bush did that? That's the kind of action we need wholesale for this entire hemisphere to really combat and disrupt and destroy the criminal element and the criminal gangs. Before that, it's just going to be just here and there. So having the military power, Donald Trump sending these people down, our military down south into Central and South America certainly will help. But we have to do something on land. We must have to get the cooperation of the presidents and the congressional folks at these foreign countries and say, enough is enough. We need the help, accept the help. We're willing to help you. And ultimately, we rid ourselves of the total problem that we've had of drugs and the human smuggling that's been plaguing the United States and this entire hemisphere for at least the last 5 to 10 years.
So one thing that stood out to me, I'm going to read a little bit of the reporting from Reuters. They say this process would be ongoing for several months, and the plan is for them to operate in international airspace and international waters. Is this a novel idea?
No, look, it's not a novel idea. We've always operated in many parts of the world in a very similar fashion, but you need to have the cooperation of those countries. If we don't, and this needs to be a combined effort. Can't be the United States only. We can't just go on sovereign land on our own. We need to have their help. So in shared intelligence, we need shared assets, and then ultimately we have to have those seizures and to take down the entire infrastructure of this criminal element. The only way that happens is working together with these countries, and Donald Trump's the guy to do it. We've seen what's happening in Alaska and these other places throughout the world. He needs to pressure these countries to help rid the criminal element. But we also know that, look, there's a lot of people, a lot of politicians are involved here. So a lot of politicians don't want to bend the knee because they also profit that they enable these kind of things. Those are the kind of things that we need to start routing out and using our State Department and our other assets to ensure that we have that cooperation and ultimately have that success that we need.
Does it feel like there is a sense of urgency at Capitol Hill to make some movement in the ways that you're talking about?
I think there's an urgency. There's an absolute urgency since Donald Trump was elected on the 20th of January of this year. We've seen this, the pressure to Mexico. We've seen the pressure to Guatemala, Honduras, and other places now. But again, this has to be an entire approach with a multiple country involvement, not just Mexico, even though that is one of the areas where most of the drugs enter through the land ports of entries that we have between San Diego and Brownsville. So all those things need to stop, and including the shipments and disrupting the shipments that are coming in from China in the Pacific with these precursors and other types of radical elements that ultimately poison our youth and our communities.
So they're sending these troops to the Caribbean for counter cartel
Yeah.
missions. What type of significance does the Caribbean play in the larger issue at hand here with cartels?
Well, you have a lot of these countries. You have a lot of islands. You have a lot of countries like Cuba that have always been a state sponsor of terror. You have Venezuela. You have the areas, some of these areas in Colombia that they create submarines. They make submarines. They transport drugs. There's a lot of jungle in some of these areas. Again, not all the countries are in on this thing in the sense of wanting to help to the level that we need their help. But ultimately, I know their citizens are, because their citizens are sick and tired of having this kind of problems in their home countries. And ultimately, what they want to do is rid themselves of the corrupt and the criminal element and get on with their lives and the quality of life, which is suffering. So having our troops in these areas just sends out a message of basically say, hey, we're here. If you don't act, we may just have to act on your behalf. And until that really happens, that's when we're really going to start sending a message to a lot of these countries, including Mexico, that if you don't do your job, if you don't help us like you're supposed to help us, ultimately helping your people and our people, then we just have to take this action on our own. And at that point, it is what it is.
Nelson Bolito is the chairman of the Border Commerce and Security Council. Thanks for coming on. Talk soon.
Thanks for having me.